Transport for London is offering courses to teach people how to be active bystanders if they see harassment on the tubes and trains. TfL said they'd had feedback saying that people want to know how to intervene safely if they see someone being harassed on public transport. The 3-hour training sessions will take place in March and April. The results of a major refurbishment of Richmond Station have been revealed. The original Art Deco features have been restored, including the canopy over the entrance, which is now finished in bronze. The project was supported by a £100,000 investment from Richmond Council. He was a constant presence in Parliament Square, confronting government with his campaigns for peace. William Haw camped in his tent in front of the Houses of Parliament for nearly 10 years. Well, today a statue to honour him was unveiled in a ceremony attended by one of his biggest admirers, the actor Sir Mark Rylance. Lakshmi Gopal reports.
A lasting tribute to an unshakable voice for peace, who for nearly a decade stood fast in anti-war protest and got under the skin of many politicians.
Who said you can kill innocent people?
In 2001, William Haw set up camp at Parliament Square. His vocal opposition to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, the background sound for MPs and passers-by, one of whom was a future Oscar winner.
I was so inspired by William Haw and his bright sense of conscience. So his great call was to stop killing the children. No matter what conflict we have as adults, they didn't create that conflict, and we should find a peaceful way of resolving the conflict.
William Haw evoked protest movements of the past.
I'm not the first, by the way. There's some people called the Toll Puddle Martyrs, the Chartists, the suffragettes were here.
The then Mayor of London saw it differently.
There is a balance to be struck between people's legitimate right to protest and desecrating, digging up, causing damage, criminal damage, to a World Heritage Site.
The authorities cleared some of the camp and finally managed to remove him in 2011. He died from cancer later that year. Now, his image in bronze stands looking across at the Imperial War Museum.
I hope to capture in him his determination and his commitment. And I'm hoping now that he will be remembered and seen as a symbol of peace.
Campaigners hope while his anti-war cries are no longer heard, his message continues to resonate. Lakshmi Gopal, BBC London.
Hello again. Now the main stories in London. First, a small but mighty tribute to the campaigner who fought for peace. William Haw lived for nearly a decade in London's Parliament Square in protest against the government's foreign policy. He died in 2011. Sir Mark Rylance was there for the unveiling of his statue, as was our reporter, Rosie Barnett.
William Haw walked into Westminster in 2001. He didn't leave for 10 years.
He stayed for that night, stayed for the week, stayed for the month, stayed for the year. He stayed for 10 years.
Becoming one of the most prominent peace campaigners in the UK's history, Brian shone a light on the human cost of war, making his presence impossible for politicians to ignore.
The law is above you!
Now, 13 years after his death, that presence is back once more, this time in the form of a 72-centimetre bronze statue erected in his honour, designed to show him how he was in the months before he died, the years of protest wearing him down, but defiant he remained.
In a way, you know, it shows him that he was still so determined after 10 years to protest and make a difference.
His protest attracting supporters from all walks of life, Sir Mark Rylance became friends with Brian when he used to stop and chat on his way home from the West End. When Brian passed away in 2011, the actor took on the campaign to erect the statue as a permanent reminder of all he fought for.
So I was very moved by his bravery and his faithfulness and endurance and his service to the nation, in my view.
That campaign finally coming to fruition, with dozens of friends, family and followers all gathering as the statue was unveiled. Actor and singer Johnny Flynn marking the moment with a song for peace.
Find just enough peace to make my way home with.
The statue stands in the wall of the School of Historical Dress in Lambeth. If you follow Brian's gaze, it rests on the guns of the Imperial War Museum. Along with the statue, a free Brian Haw exhibition has also been set up at the School of Historical Dress, featuring photographs and the real unwashed shirts he wore during his campaign. Now, these are just here for the next week, but campaigners are hoping to find a more permanent place to store these historic symbols of a fight for peace that's far from over.
A policeman asked Brian once, "How long are we going to stand here?" And Brian said, "As long as it takes." If he was alive today, he'd still be standing there. Absolutely.
The man who stood his ground for a decade, now standing forever, or in his words, for as long as it takes. Rosie Barnett, ITV News.